Hi everyone, so today we're going to be factoring trinomials when a is equal to 1 and c is less than 0. So before this we looked at when c was greater than 0, meaning c was positive. Today we're going to look at when c is negative. So before we get started factoring, let's just practice identifying a, b, and c in the quadratic trinomials. So here we have z squared plus 9z minus 36. We want to identify a, b, and c. So there's nothing in front of z. That means that there's that invisible 1, and that is our a value. Remember, a is the coefficient in front of our variable squared, so that's what a is going to be. B is the number next to the variable that has that invisible exponent of 1, so it just looks like a variable. So that's going to be a positive 9. And then C is our constant, the number that has no variable next to it, which is going to be negative 36 in this case. Okay, for number 2, same thing. We do not have a number in front of x, so we know that that's an invisible 1. That's our a value. Our b value is going to be this negative 5. That's what's right next to the x. And then our constant is this negative 14. So today we can see that these c values are negative, and that's what we're going to focus on. So factoring when a is equal to 1 and c is less than 0. It's very, very similar to what we did yesterday, but there's one thing that we need to remember, and we'll talk about it right now. So we're still going to be looking for two factors of c whose sum is b. The only thing is the sum is going to be a little different, and we'll see why. So if c is negative and a equals 1, then the signs of the binomial factors will be different. So yesterday they were both the same, today they will be different. The larger numerical factor will have the same sign as b. So we're going to see the whatever larger number we're talking about is going to be the same sign as our b term. So here we have x squared plus bx minus c, and then x squared minus bx minus c. We can see these are both negative, and it doesn't matter what the sign here is. If c is negative, that means that our numbers that we're looking for have to be different signs, because a positive times a negative has to be a negative, and we're always looking for factors of c. So we're going to be dealing with a positive and a negative number here. So remember, we're still adding, so we have to refresh on what that means when we're adding numbers that have different signs. So when adding integers with opposite signs, remember to subtract and keep the sign of the largest absolute value. So for example, if we had negative 6 plus 4, what we actually do here is we subtract these numbers, 6 minus 4, we get 2, and then the number that would have the largest absolute value, the number that's the furthest away from 0, is this 6 here. So we're going to keep the sign of this 6. So this is going to be a negative 2. So this was larger, so that's why this is a negative 2. So we subtract, keep the sign of the larger absolute value. So the larger numerical value with the largest absolute value. Okay, so once you remember that, we're going to apply that to when we factor this. So let's take a look. So factoring trinomials completely. Remember, the important question of today is what are two factors of c whose sum is b? So two factors that multiply to c, add to b. So right now I'm going to create my little am. I want two numbers, and when I multiply them, they give me negative 5. When I add them, they're going to give me negative 4. I'm going to make my table. Start with your multiplication. So we want to look at two numbers that when we multiply them, they give us negative 5. So I'm going to do 5 times negative 1. Sorry, let me just fill that in here. Okay, that gives us negative 5, and then 5 plus negative 1. So 5 plus negative 1, we would subtract, keep the sign of the larger. That would give us positive 4. So we do not want positive 4, we want negative 4. But we're close though. So the only thing that's off is the sign. So I'm going to cross this out. And instead of having a positive 5, negative 1, let's do a negative 5, positive 1. Negative 5 plus 1. So it works over here. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And then negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. Because remember, we subtract, keep the sign of the larger. We also see that this number here is negative. Our b value is negative. So that tells us that the largest number should be negative. So this is a -5 because this is -4. If this number in the middle is negative, that means our larger number here should be negative. So I'm going to make my set of parentheses. X is going to go first. And then I'm going to put -5 and then a +1 because it's -5 and a +1. I do want to talk about the fact that we can change the order here. So we can write it like this, or we can write it like this. I know I didn't touch on that yesterday. But the order doesn't matter because multiplication is commutative. The order matters inside the parentheses, but the order of the parentheses doesn't matter. So either one of these will work as long as you have the right signs with the right numbers. Okay, so just make sure you always box your answers. And let's take a look at the next one. So here we want two numbers that are going to add up to +7 and multiply to -30. So we're multiplying to -30. So I'm just going to move it over a little bit more just so I have enough space. Multiply to 30, -30, and add to a +7. So this already tells me here that my bigger number should be positive. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with. Let's pick two numbers that when we multiply them, they give us -30. So let's try 6 times -5. 6 times -5 gives us -30, but 6 plus -5, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger. 6 minus 5 is 1. So that doesn't give us 7. So this is not the set of numbers we're looking for. Let's try -10 and 3 and see what happens there. -10 times 3 gives us -30. -10 plus 3, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger. 10 minus 3 is 7, but the larger number here is 10. So that would give us a -7. So we don't want a -7, we want a +7. We're close, but the sign is off. So let's just switch these signs and see what happens. So I'm going to cross this out, and let's try 10 times -3. So 10 times -3 is -30. 10 plus -3. Different sign, subtract. 7. Keep the sign of the larger number here, which is a +10. So that would give us a +7. So this is the set of numbers that we're looking for, 10 and -3. And like I said before, this number here is positive, so it makes sense that the larger number here is positive. Those have to match. So let's create our set of parentheses, x plus 10, and then x minus 3. You can write it like that, or you can switch it around, x minus 3, x plus 10. As long as you don't change the signs or anything, either one will work. Okay, so remember, we're still looking for numbers that add up to the number in the middle, multiply to the number on the end, but when C is negative, that automatically tells us that we're going to have one positive number and one negative number. Make sure you remember the rules when you're adding positives and negatives. Different signs subtract, keep the sign of the larger absolute value. Okay, good luck.